You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Evan Lang, and with me, as always, my partner in crime, Skyler Timmons. Skyler, how you doing?
Good. I'm getting paid on the back end for these episodes, right? For the next 20 years?
Yeah, we're deferring.
Oh. Deferring our $5 whole.
You get 50 cents a year for the next 35 years.
All right.
A little bit of interest on top. You come out on top eventually.
Eventually, when I'm dead.
We are, of course, referencing the fact that the Los Angeles Dodgers are deferring over $1 billion in contracts from, 2028 to 2038 or something?
Something into the next century.
It's ridiculous. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, there is news on the home front, and that is that
we're not getting Juan Soto.
Well, yeah, we might as well start with that. So, friend of the show, Kevin Larson, sent an email to one Mr. Dick Monfort asking, I know that Juan Soto is going to be very expensive, but he would immediately elevate the Rockies into contention. Why don't we sign him? To which Dick Monfort, to his credit, responds to fan emails, responded, basically, here's why the Rockies won't be getting Juan Soto, and it's not because of the money, it's because he has a preference to stay on the East Coast, he says. Which I wonder if anybody told the Los Angeles Dodgers that, who are apparently willing to offer him $700 million.
Well, what is Los Angeles but the really far east coast of the East Coast?
Los Angeles is the east coast of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. It's East Coast somewhere.
So there you have it, folks. No Juan Soto, but it's not because of the money. It's because we're not the East Coast.
It's also probably part of the money.
Mostly the money.
But he won't say that loud. He won't say that part out loud.
Why would you?
But yeah, so that's our show. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, Kevin's got that commitment to the bit. I remember a couple years ago he also emailed Dick Monfort about trading for Shohei Ohtani, to which Dick said, "Hey, that would be a lot of fun
for a couple months."
Yeah.
But, I mean, to his credit, I do give Dick Monfort credit that regardless of the amount he tends to get clowned upon, he keeps still reaching for that iPad or iPhone of his and responding to fan emails.
And at least he's kind of learned that lesson of, like, don't berate the people that email you. So he's got some level of transparency. It would be nice if the transparency would be directed in a meaningful way.
Like the baseball operation side of things, or, hey, do we have a plan?
Yeah.
Like, at all for the future of this organization.
So, anyways.
I don't think any of us expected that the Rockies were going to be in on Juan Soto, but
you never know until you ask.
Hey, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Am I right, folks?
Exactly.
But speaking of shots that the Rockies might take, MLB.com, Colorado Rockies beat reporter Thomas Harding posted on the socials yesterday that the Colorado Rockies are still in the hunt for a second baseman, despite signing Kyle Farmer a couple of weeks ago to a, 1 year, $4.5 million or something, or 4.25 after incentives.
Yeah,
and all that
it can
jazz.
max out that high.
That the Rockies are still looking to sign a second baseman, and a name to keep an eye on is Thairo Estrada. Thairo Estrada. And this is weird for a lot of reasons. First of all, if you're going to spend over $5.5 million and sign 2 second basemen, why not just keep Brendan Rodgers? the guy that you know would start every game at second base.
Yeah. Now, this whole second base situation is weird, especially when Bill Schmidt come out. We're going to try something different. And so they get Kyle Farmer almost immediately after non-tendering Rogers to save whatever little money they could. His deal's pretty equivalent. And like we talked about in the episode a couple weeks ago, hey, Kyle Farmer's basically Brendan Rodgers, just older. All things considered, just that profile. Maybe a little more consistent, at least durability-wise. Other than that, pretty similar. But hey, we all assume you get Kyle Farmer. Okay, there's your starting second baseman. We don't like it, but we'll deal with it. Okay, let's go.
Hang on to it until Adele Amador or whomever from the minors is ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, and so there's that. Right, okay. Aaron Schunk, hopefully he gets to battle for it. Owen Miller's there if you need it. Okay, second base seems figured out. But then they come out with this from Thomas Harding that a source is saying, hey, we're still looking for second baseman. Look at Thairo Estrada. I don't know why. Because Thairo Estrada, if Bill Schmidt's wanting to try something new, Thairo Estrada is not something new in the sense of the type of player you're getting. Just looking at his stats and his hitting profile, yeah, a couple of good years in San Francisco. Dealt with a lot of injuries last season with the Giants. But at the end of the day, offensively, he's not really different than anything you've had before or just had with Brendan Rodgers. Some modest power that can come out. Doesn't strike out a lot. Okay, great. Walks, okay. But then he's just a really high contact bat. That's really the main thing he brings to the table, at least that I've seen.
Yeah, it's just funny because we were joking, okay, well, Kyle Farmer is basically old Brendan Rodgers. And if we bring in Thairo Estrada, we're bringing in Venezuelan Brendan Rodgers.
There we go.
Where solid defensive gloves at second base. Like, I have no problem with Thairo's glove at second base, though Thairo has he's got that beloved positional versatility that the Rockies love because he can play all three outfield positions as well as a little bit of shortstop and third base. So you're essentially bringing in two Brendan Rodgers themed utility men who had very down years in 2023 or 2024, pardon me, and fill the same profile as Brendan Rodgers. But why though?
Yeah, it's just that weird thing of you had a second baseman and then you're looking for second baseman. And to Estrada's credit, when healthy, in 2022, 2023, had 1.8 WAR in 2022, had a 2.3 in 23, had 14 home runs both of those years, 20 stolen bases at least both of those years. So he's got some things you like of a guy that can, get on base a little more. But even then, he's mostly a high contact bat. He's Jose Iglesias with a better glove and can, get on base a little more, maybe a little more power. Other than that, it's not a big, huge difference.
Speaking of, Jose Iglesias is a free agent. Rockies, why don't you look him up?
Get another second baseman. But yeah, so like a career 300 on base percentage, 251 hitter, 394 slugging. So nothing that wows you, nothing that you didn't already have in-house or that you currently have in-house. It's just the fact of bringing in a guy that they like, maybe that same thing you mentioned, versatility. He could be our right fielder type of thing. He could be like Harold Castro. It's just we're rehashing the same things over and over again with free agents that they keep going after. These bargain bin pickups. Oh, he was injured last year. He'll be cheap this year, and he's been good in the past.
And I wouldn't even necessarily be against that if it was just one guy. Yeah. But it's just this constant of, oh, well, I looked in the bargain bin and there were three guys, so I got them all. Mm-hmm. And then if you're overspending on bargain guys, it's not really a bargain anymore, is it?
Exactly. And that's the thing, and we've talked about this before, their unwillingness to put faith in guys they have in-house. Okay, Amador struggled at the start of 2024 and then struggled in his, 14 games in 2024 in his big league debut. Okay, but you brought in Kyle Farmer to just be that placeholder. What do you need Castro for? Or not Castro, I'm thinking of Harold Castro. What do you need Estrada for?
We will never forget you, Harold Castro, and the mental damage you inflicted upon us.
But it's that same thing.
Yeah,
Why are we bringing this in when you have guys in-house who will fill that bench role of Aaron Schunk, who was starting to flash it at the end of last season. You've got Greg Jones that you have to figure out what the heck to do with him in the system.
Yeah, because you traded a solid pitching prospect for him and then proceeded to do nothing with him.
Yeah, he hit a home run for his first major league hit, and then you just stashed him back in AAA for the whole year.
Where he stole 46 bases.
Yeah, so he's got tools. He could definitely learn second base, play a perfectly fine second base.
You traded for Owen Miller for some reason.
Yeah, so they're doing these things, and then they do stuff like this, or they haven't done anything yet, so this is just reports. I guess we can't blame them entirely, but Thomas Harding usually knows what's up. Why are you rehashing, retreading this old stuff we've seen, this same old song and dance we've seen year after year after year? Stick Kyle Farmer there, we're good. Aaron Schunk can get some time there until Amador is ready, or Ryan Ritter, or somebody. The stopgap is filled. You don't need to keep shoving stuff into the stopgap.
Yeah. And there are so many options. Like we've discussed this at length before, that the Rockies have a ton of people who can play or do play second base in their farm system right now. Even with the exodus they had of guys at the AAA level, they had a ton of free agents there. There's still a bunch, you guys. Like, heck, you could put Cole Carrick at second base if he was a little bit higher up in the system. You've got all of these people, and in Double A alone, you've got 3 different guys. You've got Ryan Ritter, Sterling Thompson, and Adele Amador, and then in AAA you've got Greg Jones, and then Owen Miller, Aaron Schunk. You've got people. Stop digging for bargains. And it's like, if it was just one of them, I'd be like, all right, you know what? It's the Rockies, but whatever. Like, if it was just Thairo Estrada, I like Thairo Estrada, Thairo the Pyro. He's a fun player to watch when he's healthy. He had some solid seasons in San Francisco. He would be sort of your classic Rockies 1-year reclamation project.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't need him and Kyle Farmer.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is we don't know what roles guys would fill. If they would be like, hey, yeah, Kyle Farmer, he's our starting second baseman. That's the plan. We're like, okay. And then, if they're like, Thairo Estrada, we're going to bring him in. He's going to be one of our bench guys. If they would announce kind of the roles these guys are going to fill when they're getting signed in some ways, instead of us kind of leaving and assuming, and then they sow these seeds of doubt, where it's like, bringing Thairo Estrada, okay, it's kind of Aaron Schunk and Estrada battling for that spot on the bench. Maybe Aaron Schunk then can get more regular playing time down in AAA. Okay, that's great. We know the plan. We know what roles these guys fit into. That's what gets me, is the aimless, we're going to bring this guy in, and they're still looking for a second baseman. Right? Then what was Kyle Farmer for? That's the part that gets me. I can understand when you would bring in guys like, they bring in Estrada, if they would define what his role is or give us some idea of what they're planning on, that makes things like this a little easier to understand and stomach.
Yeah, and it always rolls back to that of, what is the plan? Why won't you tell us anything? It's all about communication. The sign of a healthy relationship, Skyler, anyone will tell you, is open and honest communication. And I'm starting to think our relationship with the Rockies isn't very healthy.
It's a little toxic. There's some red flags. Certainly. Yeah, that's because that's the Rockies. Are you trying to compete, or are you rebuilding? Because the way your roster is constructed, you're rebuilding. But the way you try to act, is that you're competing.
But then the moves you make are neither. Because I
Exactly.
guarantee you a competitive team isn't going Kyle Farmer and Thairo Estrada are options at second base, especially when, like, you know who would be a really fun option to pick up if you're really looking for a free agent second baseman is Ha-Seong Kim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, the all-star.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But luckily, like we also learned, like Mark Fysand talked about this, the Yankees are also interested in Thairo Estrada. But even then, it's like, would he be their starting second baseman or just an extra piece to fit into the rotation?
Okay, and I must correct myself. Ha-Seong Kim was not an all-star, but he did win a Gold Glove and finished 14th in MVP voting in 2023.
There you go. So, like, at least there's other teams. It's nice to know, like, hey, there's some interest from some other teams instead of it's just the Rockies picking up random dude off the pile just because there's money and they just want a warm body.
Yeah, blowing their allowance at the thrift store.
Yeah.
And there are reasons to go to the thrift store, but finding your starting second baseman probably isn't one of them. If you are claiming, like you have repeatedly, that you think you can be good in 2025, which we all know is not the case. Like, just be honest with us, Rockies. And it's frustrating because then you get these messages from Bill Schmidt where first he's like, well, we're in on Rodgers and Rodgers is going to be a significant part of 2025. Then they non-tender him. And then they go, well, now we're going to try something different, but it's not anything different that they've tried because both of the one player they've brought in and the other player they're apparently looking at bringing in are both very similar to Brendan Rodgers, but it's also, this isn't even the first time they've done something like this because this is like when they signed Jose Iglesias to be the stopgap shortstop for Ezekiel Tovar.
It's, like we said, they just keep retreading stuff they've done again and again and again. Because I think we're both pretty kind of like, okay, Kyle Farmer's here. We're fine with that.
Whatever.
You do your thing. We know he's a stopgap for now while somebody gets ready. But it's...
maybe he'll have a nice positive influence on the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And he will be a cromulent second baseman until Adael Amador or Ryan Ritter or Sterling Thompson or one of the many, 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 many middle infielders we have are ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's just, it feels like the Rockies all of a sudden just turning on a heel, have lost faith in Adael Amador. Doesn't it kind of feel like that?
Yes.
I don't know if it's just me.
And this is not the first time they've done this with a prospect where they're like, he's our guy, he's our guy, he's our guy, he's not our guy. We don't believe in him anymore.
Because he comes in and gets that little brief stint in the big leagues this year. And 14 games, or like even that, didn't even feel like 14 games. It was a very, very brief window of games. And that was enough to have them lose all faith in him when he was already struggling in Double-A at that point when they called him up.
He had 35 at-bats in 10 games.
And
and you know what? Towards the end of those 10 games, I was saying, it's like, you just got to let him keep playing. You got to let him keep playing. And towards the end of those 10 games, you and I were both saying, hey, we're seeing some flashes. Like, he's clearly not ready to go yet because he's not.
Yeah.
But we're seeing the flashes of what can make him so special.
And then what did he do when he gets sent back down to Double-A?
It took him a little bit because the interruption in the schedule and the change in levels of play and readjusting, and he started getting better.
Yeah,
and he started finding his way. Like, he overall had a not great season in Double-A Hartford. I am not here to litigate that. That is the truth. But if you look at, like, I'm pulling up his log right now. Where is when he went back on July 1st to Double-A Hartford in the second half of his season, he did so much better. He hit 269, 359, 431, 29 walks, 8 home runs, a triple, 9 doubles, 30 ribbies. That'll play. That'll totally play.
Yeah.
And if you want to start him in Double-A again this year and have him keep building on that, and then eventually promote him to Triple-A, and then like at the end of the season, essentially you put him on the same schedule we had for Ezekiel Tovar. Then start the season in Double-A, get promoted to Triple-A, end the season in the bigs, and then 2026 he is your starting second baseman. Time to figure it out, kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Tovar, yeah, he didn't do great in his one little week of play when he debuted, but then he gets installed as the starting shortstop in 2022, right?
23 was his rookie.
23. These years all get mixed together.
Yeah, 2022 was his debut. He did hit a home run. Wasn't it against Clayton Kershaw?
Yeah, so he hits one against the Dodgers, and then it didn't look great in that first week. In that 1 week at the end of the season, like, okay, but the plan is he's going to be our starting shortstop. And then he hits the ground running in 2023, has a good, solid rookie year, and then builds on it again in 2024, a very good year that earned him 2 MVP votes.
And a Gold Glove.
And led the team in most offensive categories and a lot of the counting stats. So
prodigious doubles hitter.
Yeah. But we didn't let that brief little stint shake our faith in him? What's the difference between him and Amador in that situation? So I don't know if it's the manager being like, no, he didn't hit the ground running immediately. What is the Rockies' expectation when a rookie plays?
Because remember, they did this with Drew Romo, too. Drew Romo played for like a week, and then they were like, nope.
Yeah, nope. Oh, Hunter Goodman's hitting home runs. Okay.
Yeah, and then Drew Romo didn't play again until like the second to last game of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done this with prospects before as well. And I really don't get it.
Yeah.
Because some of them they do. Like Jordan Beck, they let play through his struggles.
Until when he started, and then he got injured, and then when he came back, finally, it was kind of hit or miss because of his struggles. They're like Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard are playing. So,
I don't know.
What is the expectation if the rookie doesn't immediately hit 300 with 10 home runs in his first 2 weeks of play? What is the expectation type of thing? Because Michael Toglia, even his struggles, which understandably that was rightfully justified.
Yeah.
But then
when you hit an 060, that's a problem.
With his struggles and everything, nothing was working for him. But some of these other guys, you can start to see what they're working through. We already knew about what Michael Toglia's problems were. Because, his profile, there was going to be struggles. He had to make changes.
We have seen Michael Toglia play the game of baseball.
Yeah, we knew 2019.
Yeah,
we knew who he was, and so that's why you're like this year when even he finally gets into a rhythm, the confidence that he's playing every day. I think that quote, I think we need to look back on more of when he was like, the confidence of knowing I'm going to be in the lineup every day just makes it so much easier. And some of these other guys can't say that. Even Amador, even a little bit, was like, well, who's playing second base? Is Amador for sure going to be in that lineup today?
And what's even worse now, and we're going way over on this first half, but honestly, this is
important stuff,
is that we don't know now if Michael Toglia is even going to be our starting first baseman in 2025.
Yeah, they still sow that doubt in there.
Because, the doubt is sown because, we've got to find a place for Chris Bryant to play.
DH is right there.
Or...
Yeah, but it's like...
I don't know if that was audible on
it was.
The long, sorrowful meow. Well, we got to find
Bryant at first base.
We've got to find a place for Chris Bryant to play.
Oh! But
he says what we're all thinking.
Yeah, because it's like, well, Toglia, if he can still keep making that progress, maybe he'll be in there every day. Like, no, he proved pretty well what he can do when he's playing every day.
Yeah, if I already have, like, based on the 2024 season, I already have what I think would be the ideal opening day starting lineup in my head, just based on all of those performances. And guess who's at first base? It's not Chris Bryant, it's Michael Toglia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who, if he had hit like that before June, would have over 30 home runs. Out of doubt in my mind. Potentially even like 40, because he was mashing.
Yeah. So who knows? What is this team looking for? What is their plan forward? It's still that approach to rookies, and this probably comes from the manager too, of emphasis on rookies and the role they play with the team. Because even Brenton Doyle didn't seem like he was playing every day when he first got called up. It was, you had Grichuk, and then, they dumped Daza because it was Grichuk got injured, right?
They both did. Daza's shoulder basically fell apart.
Yeah. So, but the situations where it was like, well, he's starting in right field, Grichuk is in center field. Okay, well, maybe we'll let Doyle play some more center field and stuff.
Or like that hesitation to let Nolan Jones play, where they called him up for that 3-game series in Seattle and he did nothing. He sat on the bench and watched, and then got sent back down.
Yeah. So there's a hesitation.
Which also leads to the Rockies being cavalier with their player options that always bites them.
Because it was like, with Tovar, it was Bill Schmidt, like, he's going to be our shortstop. From day one, he's like, he's our shortstop. And so there was no other choice but to let him play shortstop. And he made it his own. Same with Doyle. When there was no other options left, Doyle, you're in center field. Oh, Gold Glove.
Yeah, and so now you're 2 for 2 on that working out. And honestly, 3 for 3 if you're counting 2023 Nolan Jones, who they, once again, ran out of bodies and were like, all right, Nojo, I guess you're the left fielder. And he ran away with it. And we now know so much more about what was going on with Nojo in 2024. Not only the injuries and the confidence strain, but also the stuff going on with his daughter and all of that stuff. It was a tough year. Yeah. And knowing all that we do now, I do legitimately think that Nolan Jones can rebound in 2025. Yeah. And I want to see him do it because we love Nojo. Mm-hmm. We do. I do. I assume you do. A lot of other people do. He's a ton of fun to watch when he's on. Great guy. But so essentially in 2023, you went 3 for 3 with, all right, rookie, you've got the floor. Show me what you can do. Mm-hmm. So why don't they keep doing that?
Well, I guess we need to end this segment. My last thought will be this. After 3 years, they still haven't learned the lesson from the fact that Chris Bryant will be injured for the majority of the year. The main lesson you can take away from that, the silver lining, is that forces you to give rookies a chance to see what they can do. Michael Toglia, not a rookie, but more or less in terms of major league time. Michael Toglia, Brenton Doyle, Ezequiel Tovar, not really affected by Chris Bryant injuries, but fits in that same camp of rookies getting the chance when you have to fall back on them. Just let them play in the first place.
Yeah. And even Hunter Goodman to an extent.
Yeah.
It's like you've got all these rookies who are flashing their stuff and they just keep wanting to go back to the old guys. And there is a place on every team for your old clubhouse guy. Like we said for 2024, Jake Cave, had he not basically ended up being the everyday starter in right field, would have been totally fine to have on this team as your backup outfielder and good clubhouse guy. And you can say the same about Kyle Farmer. Kyle Farmer, even if he's not going to be the starting second baseman, you've got a good clubhouse guy, and he's got the ability to do solid utility work.
Mm-hmm. If you want to figure out what guys can bring to your team, let them play. That's why Elehuris Montero is not on this team anymore. Because we let him play. He wasn't doing anything. We cut him loose.
Yeah, but even then, though, you've got the Elias Montero issue of they didn't let him play for like 3 years.
Exactly. We could have made that decision a lot sooner.
Or he could have developed differently.
Exactly. You got to figure out one way or the other. Ugh. Anyways.
But whatever happens.
Oh, I wasn't ready for this.
That happens. That's baseball.
And we're going to take a quick break. Went a bit long in this first half, but I think it was a good and important conversation to have. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. I am Evan. That is Skyler.
Hi.
The painting of the guy riding the cow or whatever is still in the background.
Covering my dressers.
You can also, I just noticed that you can see the soulless, dead-eyed, batless hitter statue from our award show in the background.
Yeah, we've got a big old elephant from my grandma.
The elephant is cool.
Funko Pops of Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Goku. There's a Majin Buu up there. There's a Toad from the Mario movie. What else I got up there? Oh, there's Satchel Paige statue.
Satchel Paige is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I've also found that in the Goodwill.
Goodwill is fun. Like even if you just like Goodwill, Savers, you go to a thrift store, you might find something neat.
Mm-hmm. And then my bobbleheads. There's a weird one from the Salem Kaiser volcanoes. His name is Roofman. I will bring this to the camera so our YouTube watchers can see this. Look at this horrifying thing.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah, I do not know what is up with Roofman.
It's probably a lot like, the Spokane Indians have Recycle Man. But that's pretty horrific, Skyler.
Yeah, it's a Mosier Roofing. So
Mark Mosier of the Colorado Avalanche broadcast team?
Yes. Yeah, that's Roofman. Random bobblehead from the Salem Kaiser volcanoes.
Speaking of Mosier, if you're listening and you want some folks to talk Rockies with you on your radio show, hit us up. We'll teach you. We'll teach you the ways.
There we go.
But our next topic here, we're just going to roll right into it here. On the day this podcast will be releasing, the winter meetings will be about to start.
On Monday that you're here? No, on this Sunday evening, I think, is when it really starts.
But they usually don't really start going whole hog with the winter meetings.
Yeah, not until Monday.
Like Monday and in the middle of the week kind of stuff is when stuff actually starts happening. Winter meetings this year in Dallas, Texas, and that's when more free agent moves, more trades are going to start dropping for this offseason because all the GMs and all the coaching staffs and things like that, they're all in one place. To actually discuss these kinds of things and go over stuff. We'll also have things like the draft lottery, which we'll talk about in a minute. And basically, Skyler, I'm wondering, what can we expect from the Rockies during these winter meetings? We know Bud Black is going to hold a press conference on Monday. Usually most of the big league managers will hold a small presser or something like that throughout the duration of the winter meetings. But we've got Bud up first thing on Monday.
There we go. Yeah, not sure. They're hard to think because they're not exactly the most active at the winter meetings. They're usually not the big players. Maybe we'll hear like a minor league signing or not, or two. Usually not very active at the meetings because I don't know if this is correct, but it seems like the last big thing they did was Ian Desmond signing.
Yeah, over the last couple
like
years, it's been more networking at the winter meetings, like setting stuff up. So Jacob Stallings last year essentially said they first reached out to me during the winter meetings and we started talking about stuff. And then Stallings was eventually signed, but not until after the winter meetings had concluded. And I feel like that's more of what to expect from the Rockies this year. They're not going to make a big splash. We know that. And even their small splashes, they're probably not going to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I wouldn't expect them to really do anything really flashy. Who knows? They could surprise us during the week. Ryan McMahon traded, that type of thing. But
We signed
yeah,
Corbin Burns.
but I feel like it's like you said, it's more networking, kind of feeling the waters, more so at this point. Even though that's what the GM meetings, like the owners' meetings, are for, and like the GM meetings that
But it's
happened in
weird
like
because
the last couple weeks ago.
they never really do anything over those meetings. Like, you
It's
think during the GM meetings they do some of this stuff too, because the GMs are the guys making these roster
yeah,
moves.
that's where they do a lot of those conversations and networking. So then the winter meetings is them getting together over drinks to discuss it more. I think it's just an excuse for them to get together and drink. But
Which there's a place for that.
yeah,
Like,
I've been to the winter meetings. I walk by those bars. I see how many people are in there just doing stuff. But yeah, I wouldn't expect much. But it's those pressers that we'll hear, because we'll probably hear from Bill Schmidt. Or Bud Black will pop up on MLB Network, or we'll hear their pressers, quotes and stuff come in. But I'm not going to expect much except more of the same talking points that we've heard for the last several years. They're going to talk about their prospects. We've got exciting prospects. We've
they
got to
want
play
that play.
better. We've got exciting pitchers coming up, and that's about it.
Which, to be fair, they do. But then we look at the rotation, and it's like, well, where are these exciting pitchers going to play?
Yeah.
Because I would love to see, Carson Palmquist be given a chance to break camp, but we've already got 5 starters.
Yeah. So I'm not expecting much from the interviews and news from the Rockies. I'm not going to hold my breath. I hope they surprise me and there's something interesting. But other than that, I'm not going to hold my breath for that week. Hopefully, the next episode will have something pleasantly surprising to talk about.
Yes, please. Like, hey, things always happen right after we record, usually on the Monday. Come on.
Come on. Signing Cole Tucker to a minor league deal should not be a highlight move for the Rockies during the winter meetings.
Yeah, minor league deals are supposed to be like, oh, that's neat, or that could be interesting. Not like, wow, this was their big move of the winter meetings. They signed a minor league infielder.
What could be interesting beyond that, like we'll get to the draft lottery thing in a second, but the Rule 5 draft type of thing is what will happen there. I think that's what I'll be most interested to look at and just see, like, do we take anybody of note, or who gets taken from us?
Are we full, or are we at 39 for the 40-man roster?
I don't know. What did the Kyle Farmer move bring us up to? I feel like we're at like 39 or 40. It's very close.
Because I actually don't see the Rockies doing much.
Yeah, probably not.
In terms of the Rule 5 draft. I think if they take anybody, they take one guy, like they did last year with Anthony Molina.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to not let that, because that ended up being a problem with Anthony Molina, is that he was not ready. He's 22 years old, had never played even at AAA before, and because we took him in the Rule 5 draft, we were hamstrung by having to keep him on the 40-man roster through the season.
Yeah.
And not being able to option him.
So the Rockies, after signing Kyle Farmer, are at 39 on the 40-man roster.
They'll take somebody.
So there's room, and most teams will do that. They'll just leave a spot open, at least one spot open, just in case. Not that because then they can actually make, so that way they have the option if they want it. Otherwise, who knows? But that'll be interesting to see how that Rule 5 breaks down, and who gets taken from the Rockies too will be.
That's what I'm more interested to see. I'm less interested in seeing who the Rockies take, and more in seeing who, if anyone, gets taken from the Rockies. Because remember, they only made one Rule 5 protection, and it's Zach Veen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I'm really curious.
Well, they had a handful of other guys become free agents that would have been eligible.
Yeah, That is also true. It's going to be interesting. I like the Rule 5 draft. I always like learning about the guys we take and things like that.
Will somebody take Connor Van Scoyoc?
Oh, that's right. He is Rule 5 eligible.
And that's why we were surprised when they didn't protect him. We're like, oh, they kept talking a big game that he was that they view him as a guy that can contribute in 2025. Then they re-signed him and then didn't protect him.
I feel like they wouldn't have re-signed him if they weren't confident that he wasn't going to get taken. But I've been wrong before.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't know. It's going to be a weird one. And then the other big thing of the winter meetings is the draft lottery and getting set up for the 2025 Major League Baseball amateur draft. And the Rockies, with their 51-101 record, are tied with the also terrible Miami Marlins for your best odds at number 1 overall with 22.45%. They are also astronomically high odds. It's like 96% or something that they'll pick in the top 6. And you got to make it count, because I'm pretty sure next year we don't get a pick in the lottery for the top 10 if we finish. Is it would next year be the last year then? One of the new rules is that you can only pick in the lottery so many times.
No, that's for like big market teams. So like that's why the White Sox dropped out, because they're a big market team. Rockies, it doesn't really affect them much.
I think it's big market teams who can only get 2, and small market teams you can only get 3 in the top 10. It's something like that.
It's when you gain picks in the draft.
But
in the
either
lottery,
way,
in the draft,
there's a lot of interesting guys in the draft next year, but there's also currently a clear number 1, and it sure would be nice to celebrate the holidays with the number 1 draft pick. It would be a great gift to celebrate a holiday.
I don't know. Who?
Well, obviously, I'm talking.
I don't understand. I don't get.
Obviously, I'm talking about Jace LaViolette of Texas A&M.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Obviously, I'm talking about Cruz Schoolcraft, the 2-way player out of Sunset, Oregon.
Okay, that's a made-up name.
It is not. I'm looking at his face right here.
That is a made-up name.
Cruz, Kruz.
That is an MLB The Show.
Schoolcraft.
That is a created player in Road to the Show. He wears sunglasses and rides a skateboard with his hat backwards, and he is the bane of the dean.
He does, in his picture on MLB Pipeline, have a gigantic pair of sunglasses on. If that helps. Actually, he's a fascinating prospect. He's got a 60 graded slider, a 60 grade fastball, a 50 grade changeup, and then he's got a 55 power and a 60 arm and a 55 field. Like, legitimately an interesting 2-way prospect. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to draft this kid. It's just the consensus number 1 right now is, in case you weren't getting my incredibly subtle nod, Ethan Holiday out of Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Son of one Matt Holliday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and I think technically the Rockies have the top odds because the Marlins had a better in-season record against the Rockies. The Rockies do technically have the number 1 odds in the algorithm. They have the best chances.
Yeah.
But,
it's like the number itself is higher, but it's like it's one of those negligible amounts where they're basically the same.
Yeah.
Basically, it's all but guaranteed the Rockies will be picking in the top 6 again. And if all goes well this week, the Rockies will be picking first overall in the draft. And this would mark, I believe, the first time the Rockies ever would draft first overall.
Yes, they have drafted second, they've drafted third, but never first overall. And just to clear things up for ourselves in our conversation, teams that receive revenue sharing payouts can't receive a lottery pick for more than 2 years in a row, and those that don't can't get a top 6 choice in consecutive drafts. So we can't receive a lottery pick more than 2 years in a row, and I think the Rockies have lost their standing in
After this year.
2023.
Yeah.
In 2023, they lost standing. They didn't receive a pick. They just dropped in the standings. And so I think that's what it is. They didn't move up. They've only moved down. So they're still fine. So they could. So, like, if they got the number 1 pick, I don't think that's them. Would that count as them receiving the lottery pick if that's where they would have been anyway?
My understanding is, so basically you are receiving eligibility in the lottery. We've now been in the lottery 2 years in a row. So next year we can't be in the lottery, but if we're still garbage because we're a small market team, we can still pick in the top 10.
Because we haven't, this would be our second year in the top 6. Yeah, it's all weird rules. Anyways, I'm sure somebody will clear it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to bet when they're airing the draft lottery, they'll say something about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be interesting, that's for sure. And that's the winter meetings.
Oh wait. So is it? I'm still trying to understand this. This is what this podcast turned into. It's still confusing. So let's see. They don't get a top 6 choice in. Oh wait, teams that receive revenue sharing payouts can't receive a lottery pick for more than 2 years in a row, and those that don't can't get a top 6 choice in consecutive. So we could still always draft in that top 6.
Yes, but we can't have. But we are unlikely, or rather, can't have the number 1 pick, even if we're the worst team in baseball, because we can't be in the lottery for that number 1 pick.
Okay. Still confusing.
Hey, this ain't a mathin' podcast or statistics and probability.
It's like those things like just come out and like straight up say, like people standing for these drafts. Like that's what, like the White Sox weren't eligible to get that number 1 pick, but whatever. That's not the point of this. But yeah, number 1 pick. Rockies have to make a count if they get it.
And we've got the full 2025 high school and college seasons ahead of us. It is entirely possible that the person who is the consensus number 1 pick could change. Like, it could not be Ethan Holiday by the end of the season, by the time it's time for the draft next year. And it could also be that there is no clear consensus number 1 pick, like there kind of was this year. Is that you could have seen Charlie Condon go first overall, and you could have seen Travis Bazzana go first overall. Like, there were multiple people who were, it's like, I could see them going first overall. And even some other guys like Jack Caglione, that guy who got drafted by the Royals. I don't think he ended up going in the top 4, but was still considered, like, I could see someone taking this guy first overall. So who knows? Like, there is way too much time between now and the draft.
Mm-hmm. But hey, they want another middle infielder. They get number 1 pick. You can go get Ethan Holiday. Who knows?
And then hire Matt Holliday as the hitting coach. And then trade for Jackson Holiday.
There you go.
And then the 2025 Rockies Christmas card is a picture of all of them in Christmas sweaters. It says Happy Holidays from the Holidays and your Colorado Rockies.
With the song Holiday.
Or the Green Day song Holiday.
Ooh. Yeah, not a whole lot with those winter meetings. I won't hold my breath. There's like the draft. That's the most important thing.
We dedicated a whole segment to the winter meetings, and it's like, there's really not much we can talk about until the winter meetings actually happen.
Yeah, it's that question, and this we'll close this. We can probably close this segment out with this, so we can move on. But
somebody listening at home, just please, God, wrap it up.
The one burning question, the MLB.com wrote this a couple days ago. One burning question for each team at the winter meetings. For the Rockies, how much talent will be added versus keeping the path clear for prospects? A tight payroll and a legitimate thought that prospects can answer their burning questions, even if it takes a couple of seasons, seems to point to the Rockies being quiet in Dallas. That's what we expected. And this is from Thomas Harding's little blurb. However, there are a couple of holes. The club non-tendered second baseman Brendan Rodgers, and that's the position where they most likely will seek a starter. We already talked about that. Ideally, the Rockies would like to start the year with an experienced regular, much the same way that they used Jose Iglesias at shortstop in 23 until Tovar was deemed ready. Now it's prospects Adi Alamador and Ryan Ritter, who are not quite knocking on the door, but could be after developing their games. A proven corner outfield bat is needed, but the likely scenario is the Rockies allow Jordan Beck a chance to show his wares after a fractured left hand hampered his debut in 2024, or grant new chances to Sean Bouchard and Sam Hilliard to join Brent Doyle and Nolan Jones in the outfield. Behind Beck are more prospects, Zach Veen, Yanquiel Fernandez, and Benny Montgomery, whom the Rockies don't want to block. So kind of sums up what we were saying. They probably won't do much.
We'll be back next week to report on whatever happened at the winter meetings.
Oh, but we're going to talk more about that corner outfield thing. We'll get there.
I'm sorry, Sean. I like Sean Bouchard a lot.
Neither of those options they presented, aside from Beck. We'll get into it in another episode. But.
Yeah. But we're going to take one last break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. Evan and Skyler here for one last segment. And we're just going to kind of hop around the league right now because there's doings afoot. The Athletics.
Yeah, just the Athletics.
No city prefects. Signed Luis Severino to the largest free agent pitching deal in franchise history.
It's the largest deal in free agent history for the A's.
It was it's only like 3 years, $67 million.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting choice. We saw Clay Holmes go to the Mets as a starting pitcher. That's neat. Good for him. The big thing has been the Dodgers continuing to dodger, where they're not out on Juan Soto. They just signed Tommy Edman for $74 million. And they just continue to defer, over $1 billion in deferred contracts. And the fact that they're still not out on Juan Soto, despite him now being in the ballpark of around $700 million for whatever he signs for, is just, that's ridiculous. Come on now.
Yeah, there's that loophole, and they are taking advantage of it so they can save themselves money now so they can continue to add on and just win in the present day. So you got to respect that they're taking advantage of the loophole that, hey, we can do this. But like we talked about with our friend Patrick Lyons over on the Rockies Insider podcast, that people were very reasonable in the comments talking about this. But it's just something that's annoying that the richest team, is able to bring in the best players, the top players, strictly in it. Blake Snell talked about this too. It's a place players want to come to, and so they're willing to make structure those deals that way so they can just continue to help the team build up into the super team. So you got to give huge props to them in that department. It's still infuriating as a fan and somebody that covers other teams that don't do stuff like this. But
yeah. And it's like I said in that episode, and if you want to check that out, check it out on Rockies Insider. It was a really good conversation. Is that people always go, well, that's the fault of the other owners for not doing the same thing the Dodgers are. But if you look at it, it's really only the Dodgers, I think.
Maybe the Yankees.
Players would be willing to do that for. That the team has the resources to do it, and that the players would be willing to do that for. Like, yeah, the Rockies could go to Juan Soto and say, we'll give you $700 million and we'll defer $600 million of that. Juan Soto's not going to do that for the Rockies.
Yeah. And like the Dodgers have the most lucrative TV deal. So that bankrolls them a bunch, and then just their resources and the money that comes into the team, revenue. it's much more than what the Rockies are getting, who lost a bunch of money on a TV deal, and who knows what their payroll is going to be and how much money they actually lost and what they have to allocate towards the roster. The Dodgers can do what they need to do. And man, I wish we could, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. But it's one of those things of, you look around the league, what do players think of that? I think, like, I'm sure the union's always going to be behind guys getting paid because that's just going to be a union stance.
Yeah.
I
The union
wonder
will
if,
always back guys getting the most money possible.
but I wonder if, like, you went and like talked to some of the guys, because they're not all buddy. Like, they're competitors. They're going to be competitive against each other. I'm sure there's a ton of those players that do not like one another. I wonder what they think. Like, if you sat down with somebody, like, what do you think of all these deferred contracts? Wonder what they'd say.
I don't know.
Let's ask. This is our weekly check-in. Chris Bryant, how's your back feeling?
Feels bad.
What are your thoughts on deferred contracts?
Mm.
Well, thanks for the talk, Chris. Be sure to roll on that yoga ball.
Man, you weren't kidding about the very reasonable comments on this Rockies Insider episode. I think my favorite is the one that says, well, from what I've gathered, Evan is a crybaby. Why would you say
sources confirm?
Why would you say something so hurtful?
But yeah, I just wonder, and I wonder if that'll be a. I don't know if that'll be a. It's definitely going to bring up the salary cap type stuff. Those conversations are going to come up in that CBA in a couple years, and this type of stuff, and maybe they'll try to address something about deferred contracts, like money deferral, put a cap on that, and what you can do, because I can understand the process behind it and the usefulness of it, but it's also like promising money that you're not even guaranteed to maybe even have down the road, and type of thing. And then it hinders a team in the future. Probably not for the Dodgers. They'll figure out a way. They're constantly bankrolled, but
yeah,
you can see problems with deferred contracts because, like, it hampers you when you're having to pay somebody for years on end and they're not doing anything for you.
Yeah, there's just my honest opinion. There's going to be a lockout. There or a player strike or whatever. There will be a play stoppage with the next CBA negotiations. And I hope I am wrong. I very much do. But there have been so many changes in baseball over the last couple of years. You have the complete collapse of the regional sports network apparatus, minus for teams like the Dodgers, where the Dodgers are, they're California, they're Los Angeles. Huge population, huge market team, not a problem for them.
Yeah.
But for other teams, big problem.
But the Padres there in California, no, it feels we never hear about the Giants, but how big is the Giants?
The Giants do pretty well. Not as good as the Dodgers, obviously, but they do pretty well for themselves. They're pretty set, especially because their RSN is through NBC. Nice. But there's just a lot changing and a lot that needs to change with how baseball is ran right now. And I hope I am wrong, but I expect a lockout or a player strike or something. Yeah. And I don't want it to happen. Like, again, through some of these comments that Rockies Insiders, it was so you say you want a salary cap or you say you want changes, but then you're going to change your mind real quick when a lockout happens. It's like, but I think a lockout is going to happen anyway. So we might as well work out some of these issues.
Yeah. And something I was thinking of, how much does Juan Soto sign for? Slightly changing topic, but this buys into like salary cap stuff. How much do you think he actually is he going to go for that $700 million?
Yes.
I don't know why. Like, Juan Soto is a very, very good player. Is he personally, I don't think any of these players are worth $700 million. Shohei's contract is still way too big personally for me.
Yes. But if somebody offers it to him, he's going to take it.
Yeah.
And no judgment on him for doing that at all.
No.
Because I've always said it's like, it is not the player's fault that they're getting offered that money. And I would never blame them for taking it because that's a lot of money. It's
Yeah.
like everyone who was mad at Ian Desmond for signing for 5 years, 70. It's like, don't be mad at Desi because he took $70 million.
Mm-hmm.
We'd all take that in a heartbeat. Like, you can say, well, no, I'd play on a team-friendly deals. Would you?
Mm-hmm.
But would you, though?
Yeah. The hard part with these big, giant contracts is when they're getting over 10, 11, 12 years, he's not going to be effective throughout the entirety of that contract, doesn't feel like. Like, he'll be good
Once,
for like 10, 11 years maybe, because he's young, he's 26, but he's still got mileage on him in the league. And if you're going up to like 15 years and taking him close to 40 years old, it's gonna be tough to justify the money he'll be getting paid with the production that he brings.
for me, for Soto, I can actually see him living up longer through that contract just based on how he profiles as a hitter.
Yeah.
That crazy on base percentage where he can draw walks, that is something that can persist even as you start to lose a little bit of power or stuff like that. So as long as he can continue to get on base, I
Mm-hmm.
can see a realm where he lives out the majority, not the whole duration. Because like when you're 40 years old, come on, but
Yeah.
like age 37 and he's still got a crazy on base percentage, and he's still making it work. I can see a universe where that happens.
Yeah, but I just don't see him ever like living up to $700 million worth. I don't know. It's tough. It's hard for me as a fan of the Rockies with those low payrolls to comprehend like how much value am I getting by dropping 700 million on one dude when I could split that up and get a bunch of good players equal up to 700 million spending.
Well, I do think what's going to happen is at some point it's going to get untenable where you have too many guys who are asking for these crazy gigantic contracts. It's kind of like where I think we're going to be getting soon in the NFL, where the quarterback money compared to all of your other players is just getting ridiculous to the point where
Yeah.
you are giving God, who's just got paid where people are getting like $50 million.
Yeah. When the news is constantly he is the highest paid player in franchise history. It's every offseason we're getting that news from Scott Boras clients. After all, we're getting that news because it's just raising the bar more and more. What about the next player who's looking for 800 million, 900
900
million,
million,
a
a
billion?
billion.
Like, no. So that's partly where it's like there needs to be a cap of some kind to just curb this getting out of hand,
Which is already getting.
Yeah. But who knows? Because honestly, that luxury tax doesn't do a dang thing.
No.
The
We've
guys
seen
that
it.
are going to
We've seen
overspend
it.
are going to
Yeah,
overspend.
we've seen it in every sport where there's a luxury tax. Of if your owner is rich enough and your team makes enough revenue, that luxury tax is meaningless.
Yeah, it's chump change.
Yeah, like look at Steve Cohen in the Mets. He does not care about that
Yeah.
luxury tax.
That's why it's named after him. But
It's just it's going to be really interesting to see where we go. And it's like to everyone who's like, oh, you guys just hate the Dodgers because they're so successful. It's like, I mean, yeah, a little bit. They are our mean older brother who keeps beating us up. Like, I don't know what you want from me. That's just the truth.
Yeah.
Like, it's not fun for a team that is bad, the Rockies, to play in the same division as a very wealthy team that is also very good, the Dodgers. It just do be like that sometimes.
Yeah. But good on them. Like, glad they have those resources. They're the rich kid. And it just makes you like, man, I wish I could be me. I want to be the rich kid. I want to
Yeah.
have those nice things.
But the moment things fall apart, we'll be there to point and laugh.
Yes.
And we will save for it.
But
Remember
really,
when y'all got knocked out of the playoffs by the Arizona Diamondbacks?
yeah.
That was funny. I liked that.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, Evan, why can't the Rockies do stuff like what the A's did with Severino, though?
I don't know.
Like, because it was clear the A's, I think it's part of like because they got revenue sharing status. So, like, they get payments,
Yes.
they get the revenue sharing, and because they've been punished for a little while because they weren't putting that money into the product on the field. So, this is where the argument against a salary cap is because, like, oh, we're going to get up to $100 million on our payroll. So, what
Or
we want to do,
salary floor rather.
yeah, the salary floor, the salary floor cap.
Flap.
So, they're going to overpay to bring a guy in just so they can like get up to a threshold almost.
But at the same time, I think it serves a second purpose of
Yeah.
trying to convince fans and shareholders and such in Las Vegas that look, we can spend money
Yeah.
and definitely spend money on the team once we're in Las Vegas. Wink, wink.
Yeah, but that's where like Severino, yeah, he kind of gets overpaid, and the Rockies clearly will have to overpay to bring guys in, but they couldn't have like gotten a Luis Severino type deal done.
I think it again brings us to the fact that the Rockies will just never be willing to spend to bring in a starting pitcher.
Yeah,
I don't think we'll see that in a long time for the Rockies. I
they will
think they feel
never.
like they've been burned too many times,
They
and
won't spend double digits, especially on a guy.
yeah,
They'll bring in the Dakota Hudsons on a $2 million deal, the Jose Ureñas on a $3 million deal. Yeah, they weren't going to pay Cal Quantrill close to $10 million because he wasn't
yeah.
a homegrown guy.
They save that money for their homegrown pitchers. And to an extent, I do get it because you have faith in your starting rotation that you've developed and you want to reward that. You want but at the same time, it hasn't really worked out for
Yeah.
them. Like
Nope.
Kyle Freeland had the 1 year where he was really, really good.
And then they broke him.
And then they broke him. Aaron Marquez was looking really good. And
But
then
they broke him.
Antonio Senzatela was always going to be your back end of rotation number 5 guy.
He was always kind of broken.
And they broke him more.
And then Austin Gomber is not a homegrown guy.
And they broke him.
Yeah, his back broke him.
What I really think is if the Rockies hand out any extensions this offseason, it's going to be Erman or Brenton Doyle.
Because Armand's getting $10 million for 2025.
And he's a free agent at the end of the year. I definitely think if Erman has any semblance of just a decent season, the Rockies are going to lock him down.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not necessarily against, but I don't know. There's just a lot. There's a lot of offseason left, and we'll keep talking about it as things come up. We'll talk about where Nolan Arenado eventually lands. It's going to probably be the Dodgers. We'll talk about all these things as we continue to guide you through the offseason here on Affected by Altitude. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we really appreciate it. Our dedicated little listener base here. You guys are awesome. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
I will defer that information until next week.
Okay. Next week, tell us where you're at, please.
No, you can find me over at Twitter at silent_crowd, and then over at Blue Sky at stimmins13, TIMMINS. I have to spell it. .bsky.social. And then find me writing Wednesday rock piles for Purple Row and writing stuff for fansfirstsportsnetwork.com.
And over at Purple Row, you can also tune in and check out our Ranking the Rockies series, which is drawing to a close this week. Our final entry will be day you're listening to this is probably Monday. Our final entry will be on Tuesday with the Rockies wins above replacement leader for 2024, Mr. Brenton Doyle. And that one will be by me, so keep an eye out on it. You can also find me doing the Monday Rock Piles over on Purple Row, along with the other occasional things. And you can find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. You can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop and Affected by Altitude on all of your favorite podcasting platforms of choice, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can also always check out the video version on youtube.com, and you can find us on all of your social medias and YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. Once again, thank you so much for listening, sticking with us here. It's going to be a long off season, but hey, there's under 70 days until spring training and pitchers and catchers report. So there's light at the end of the tunnel. The long dark will be over at some point. Because I got to tell you, Skyler, I already miss watching baseball.
I need the long winter break.
I'm not specifying Rockies baseball. Let's be clear. I'm okay waiting a little.
No, that's enough. Like after 6 months of that, you need the several months until it's March.
Yeah, but the Avs are struggling and the Nuggets are struggling. Broncos are good. I'm enjoying that, but
it's okay. My franchise team and MLB The Show is a perennial postseason playoff contender. So,
who's your starting first baseman?
Let's see. I do fantasy draft for a franchise, and I've been doing the Astros. It's like 2035 right now. I have some first baseman that I drafted. That's my first baseman.
His name is Firsty Basemanton.
I think his name's Jeff Ridgway, something like that. But
that's a pretty solid baseball name.
Yeah,
or golfer name.
I did just have to purge my roster though of just clearing out roster space and money of old players like Juan Soto. He was declining. He was dropped down to like a 76 overall when he was getting paid like $39 million a year. And I'm like, I need money. You're getting too old. Even though I signed you to a 15-year deal, after 10 years, I got to move on.
Maybe that's something fun we could do is do a franchise with fan input on MLB The Show for the Rockies or something during this off season.
There you go.
Well, that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude. Once again, thank you for listening. I'm Evan, that's Skyler, and Skyler, hit him with it.
Adios.
Mamá, yo tengo dos hijos. Niños. The Ray Romano accent doesn't really work in Spanish. Don't know why.
It stinks. It stinks. It stinks.
Yeah, that's fair.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.